All right, let's jump right in. Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're targeting a silent threat, one that's likely living right under the noses of most security operations centers. We're talking about SIEM Parity drift. Honestly, if you have ever migrated platforms, refreshed your detection content, or even just tweaked your architecture a bit, there's a really good chance you're dealing with this right now, maybe without even knowing it. So picture this scenario for a second. A major security event drops. You've got two SIEM paths running in parallel, maybe because you're right in the middle of a massive migration. One path completely misses the threat, but the other catches it perfectly. Why does that happen? Both dashboards look completely healthy, the rules are active, but the operational realities, they're entirely different. To really understand this, we can look to the NSII Management Group's definition of SIEM detection parity. Basically, it's the gap between a monitored environment that merely looks consistent and one that actually delivers the exact same security outcomes. The absolutely crucial point here is that parity is a control validation problem. It's not just some cosmetic comparison. If your outcomes don't match, well, your parity is broken. Now, practitioners often fall into a pretty dangerous trap here. It's super easy to assume that if you see matching rule names, identical dashboard alert counts, or if the system works flawlessly on clean, sanitized demo data, then your detections must be equivalent, right? Actually, scratch that. It's a total illusion. That assumption shatters the very second it hits the chaotic, messy reality of a production environment. Okay, moving into Section 1, Data Collection and ETL Chaos. According to SOC Prime, if you really want to understand parity, you've got to master the ETL process, extract, transform, load. Extraction is critical because, think about it, it's literally the only phase where new, original data is introduced into your dataset based on how you configure the device. Next is that delicate space between extraction and loading, which is usually handled by event brokers like Kafka, managing your caching and queuing. Finally, you have the post-load transformation for field modeling. A breakdown in literally any of these steps creates a drift. There's a quote from SOC Prime that hits the nail on the head. They state, "Security analytics is first and foremost a data collection problem." I really want us to internalize this core truth today. Expecting reliable, equivalent security results without aggressively scrubbing and structuring your data across different formats, it's pure folly. It's just not going to work. Which brings us to Section 2, Normalization and Parsing Gaps. Machines can easily misinterpret identical events. Let's contrast this with a really great example from SOC Prime. Say a user visits a malicious site. The web proxy logs it using epoch time, an IPv4 address, the full request URL, and labels the action allowed. But then, the next-gen firewall logs that exact same event using Zulu time, an IPv4 mapped IPv6 address, just the top-level domain, and labels the action permitted. It is the exact same event, but entirely different data strengths. When you put those discrepancies side by side, the magnitude of the problem is just glaring. If your primary SIEM correlation rule is hunting for the word allowed and a standard IPv4 address, but your migrated SIEM is evaluating the firewall log showing permitted and a mapped IPv6 address, those query terms are going to miss the critical event entirely. No question about it. So the takeaway here is simple but lethal. If parsing fails, your correlation logic evaluates entirely different data. Missing even a single field mapping or having to rely on fuzzy timestamp logic to stitch two events together completely breaks allow lists and suppresses high-priority alerts. Just like that, your secondary SIEM is officially blind to a threat that your primary SIEM caught. All right, Section 3, Enrichment Latency and Timing. Time is a huge factor here. If we check out Datadog's threat intelligence documentation, they point out that when you bring your own indicators of compromise down from the cloud, it can take 10 to 30 minutes for those changes to propagate and actually enrich the logs. So if your detection rule fires in real time, but the threat intel takes 20 minutes to sync, the correlation completely breaks down. The rule just fired at the wrong time and evaluated an unenriched log. This timing mismatch is a massive driver of parity drift. Cloud sync delays, the time it takes to do complete reference table replacements, duplicated primary key errors, all of this causes friction. If one SIEM applies its enrichment before the correlation rules evaluate the log, and your new SIEM applies enrichment after the fact, your detection logic is literally no longer evaluating the same reality. Let's move to Section 4, the IPv6 blind spot. As IP threat research highlights, IPv4 and IPv6 coexist through some pretty complex transition mechanisms. You've got dual stack configurations, tunneling protocols like Teredo or 6-4, and translation layers like NAT64. Honestly, think of these like secret, unregulated tunnels running right under your network. Traffic traversing these tunnels can easily bypass legacy inspection infrastructure that simply was never configured to parse encapsulated IPv6 packets. And it gets worse when you're actually investigating an incident. IPv6 uses SLAAC privacy extensions, which generate temporary, rotating IP addresses for endpoints. They act essentially like digital burner phones. Because SLAAC doesn't require DHCP to assign an address, your standard log correlation breaks. Trying to map a suspect IPv6 address to a specific laptop during a fast-moving incident, it becomes nearly impossible. By the time you investigate, the device is already using a brand new address. So how on earth do we fix this for our correlation rules? The magic number is /64. Security teams absolutely must ensure their SIEM extracts and indexes a derived /64 prefix field right at the moment of ingestion. You have to use this subnet prefix as your absolute correlation key so you can track an attacker across all their changing temporary addresses. Here's how you structure an effective IPv6 correlation rule based on some great guidance from OneUptime. You build blockchains. First, you detect reconnaissance within that /64 target. Then, an active host is found. Then, you see multiple SSH failures. And finally, a successful login. By correlating these multi-stage events from the exact same prefix within a 30-minute window, you catch the whole attack sequence. Now, your basic single event rules will often miss this entirely. That is exactly why you have to use baseline deviation correlation. By comparing the current hour's activity for a specific /64 prefix against a 7-day historical average, using z-scores to measure statistical deviations, your SIEM can catch novel, anomalous spikes in IPv6 traffic that completely evade traditional static alerts. Finally, Section 5, validating real security outcomes. At the end of the day, this isn't just a technical preference, it's a hard governance requirement. Frameworks like NIST CSF 2.0 and NIST 853 actively demand outcome-based validation. You can't just look and check if two dashboards have the same color charts. You actually have to pump realistic logs, known attack patterns, and normal production noise through both systems to prove that the audit review and the detection outcomes are completely identical across both paths. To really guarantee parity, you should summarize your validation into 4 crucial tests. Test 1. Does event parsing produce the exact same key fields? Test 2. Does the correlation logic fire on the exact same conditions with the same suppressions? Test 3. Does the alert timing remain within acceptable, actionable thresholds? And Test 4. Does the downstream ticket routing preserve the same context for the analyst? NHI Management Group delivers this incredibly powerful quote that frames the entire issue perfectly. They say, "For mature programs, the real test is whether the same security event would still be detected, prioritized, and escalated if the primary SIEM were removed from the workflow and only the secondary path remained active." Because true parity is about operational survival, not just tool configuration. So, I want to leave you with a final, somewhat provocative thought to take back to your teams. Take a hard look at your architecture. Look at your log pipelines. If you pulled the plug on your primary SIEM today, are you absolutely certain the exact same threats would still be escalated to your analysts? If you aren't sure, it is definitely time to start checking your parity. Thanks for joining me on this explainer today, and I'll catch you on the next one.